Hi my lovelies, welcome back to my channel. For everybody who's new, I'm Leorah and I'm so glad you found me. So welcome to today's video, which is going to be a first impression video for the Affinity 2 palette, which has been lying here forever, and I cannot believe my willpower that I have not touched this up until now, because that's what I do when I get something new, that I will film a first impression video with it before I go and play with it. Well done, Leorah. Anyway, so this is the palette, and it is of course the brother palette to the Affinity 1, which I have somewhere here. The Affinity 1, you know it, I showed that palette to you as well. It is the orange and purple and yellow palette. So this is the brother. And what a beautiful baby boy it is. Alright, so this is 18 shades of beautiful gorgeousness, and I love this color scheme so much. As you know, I just ordered the Ace Beauté Oceanic palette, and that is sort of leaning into that same direction. Okay, so we have about 2/3 green and 1/3 blue, more or less, and I think today I'm going to concentrate on blue, because also I want to combine this first impression video with a video about, like, a tutorial for a half-cut crease in blue, because that has been requested by you. So that's what we're going to do today. And I think what we're going to do is using this shade, and this shade, and on the lid then this and this. That's the plan for now. We shall see what happens then in between. The thing is, I love the palette. I do not like this frame thing. I already said that when I did the first impression on the Affinity 1. There it was a golden frame like this, and it makes it so hard to read those names, especially because those names are Arab names. And I find it very, very hard for someone who's not too familiar with these names, that it's so hard to read them. You know, in the other Certifeye palettes besides the Affinity 1, the frame between the shadows is just a simple plain white frame with the name printed on, and I think that is so much smarter. I like how it looks, but I think it's not very practical. But that is really complaining on a very high level. It really doesn't matter for anyone, probably just for me. So yeah, so that's what we're gonna do today, and of course I will create more looks with the greens, and I would probably have gone for the greens for a first impression if there would have not been that request for the blue cut crease tutorials. The other thing I should mention is, and you probably have heard it already, that I have my fan running and it's blowing towards me. It is standing right behind the camera and it makes a lot of noise. I'm so sorry about that. I hate it. But what can I do? If I don't have the fan blowing, I will really melt, and I don't have air conditioning in this room, and I don't have other outside air in this room because I'm in the basement, and I just have to have the fan going during the summer. So I hope we can all live with that. And with all that being said, let's just jump into the tutorial. If you have watched my eyebrow routine video, then you know that I have applied already foundation on my forehead, and I've done my eyebrows, I have primed my eyelids, and that is basically, oh, I have tight lined my upper lash line, waterline. Excuse me. And that is usually what I do, and if you're interested in what I'm talking about, then maybe you want to go ahead and watch that video. I'm going to link it here in the cards. So that's where we're at. And now I think, because I have done a lot of cut creases with like crazy wings lately, because I love that, but I think for today I want to go for a more rounded look, you know, a little bit more leaning towards the classical smoky eye, but then just carving out a half-cut crease above that, sort of. Okay, so for that I'm going to start with this shade right here, which is the shade, I think, Ajib, if I can read that correctly. And I'm going to use a flat packing brush that is pretty stiff, and then I'm going to use this shade to just pack it on at the outer corner here, and then also right across here in my crease, like this. This is just for deepening up the crease, and then of course here for blending it out. I really hope you can hear me, because this fan is really really, really, really loud. When I sent my husband to buy that fan for me, he said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I said, "I really have no choice, but when you go and buy this, please ask them to buy a YouTube compatible fan." Yeah, it's not. It's absolutely not. So I'm going to drag this shade all around here. And don't worry to mess up this. It's not a big deal because we're going to clean up that area anyway. So don't worry about that. And I'm just going to sort of push the products in, and I'm dragging it down all the way till the corner of my eye. Next, I'm just going to wipe off my brush that I just used right now. I'm going to wipe that on a cloth here, and I'm just blending out with that same brush a little bit the edges, so it's just not a super harsh line. It's not going to blend out amazingly, obviously, but that's okay because we're going to put shades above that. But it makes it much easier if it is not that pressed on line that we just did. So, but just the outer edges, because otherwise we're gonna lose the pigmentation on that actual blue that we just put down. I think the color payoff and it is really good. I have previously not been the super greatest fan of Certifeye formula. It is a good and okay formula, especially the mattes, but I do prefer other mattes. For example, Juvia's Place and Pinky Rose Cosmetics. I love those formulas a bit more than this, but or I should say the older palettes from Certifeye. I feel, but I'm just going according to that very first shade that I just used, that this performs better than what I would have expected. So I'm really happy about that. Okay, so you might want to keep this darkest shade close to your crease, okay? But you should now look at a mirror that is not a magnifying mirror and just look straight ahead. And when you have your eyes open, then you have to see, like, you have to have a good space of this color visible. It should not disappear into your crease, especially if you have an eye shape that has like a very natural deep crease, okay? So it should be still very well visible. Okay, next I'm going to take another brush like I just had for the darkest blue shade, and I'm going to use this shade here, which is called Hussein. And I'm going to apply that right at the edge that we just sort of blended out a little bit. And I can already now see that it is a lighter shade, yes, but it is not a big difference. So that's why I'm going to keep it really local in order to give me more space to still work with for the last remaining shade, which is going to be this one, in order to blend it out. Because if I draw that up too much, I'm going to almost hit my eyebrows, which is not going to be very flattering. Now again, I'm going to wipe off my brush, and again I'm just blending this upper edge the tiniest little bit. Because now when we put on that very light shade, which is called Nawab, that will be a big jump in color in the pigmentation. As you see, this is a medium kind of a blue, and this is very light blue. So we did not have a lot of trouble blending these two because that jump was not as big. So we shall see what we can do here, but for now I'm going to just blend out at the edge a tiny little bit, and here I have to be even more careful because the whole, like the width of application of that second shade, Hussein, was not as wide as the dark blue. So in order to not lose that shade completely, I have to be very careful not to overblend. Okay, this is how it looks so far, and now I'm going to go in to this shade, which is called Nawab, and I'm going to use a fluffier blending brush that looks like this. And usually in that case I'm not applying like this, but like this, and just sweep it over the edge. And again, please be careful to not drag it up too far up towards the eyebrows, so you still have some skin tone color showing, because that is just way more flattering. Okay, now I'm sort of happy with the blend towards my eyebrows, but usually what I do in this case, I'm just pulling in from a different palette because I don't have that in the Affinity 2 palette. I'm using a bone color shadow or whatever skin color that you need for your own skin tone, and I'm just blending out this here with, or setting that area with a bone color shade. Because obviously this here has not been touched by any eyeshadow, and it makes the blending of that very light blue towards that area a little bit easier. You could even use a white if you're very fair like I am, but sometimes I use a white, but most of the time I'm using a bone color shadow. As you can see, it makes the blend really, really nice. Here on this blend we still have to work, which we're going to do in a second, but I think for the area up here, I think it looks really, really nice already. Okay, next I'm basically going back downwards now and work on the blend of these blues here. And usually I do that, you know, the first brushes that I used were those very dense packing brushes, and now I'm going to use a brush that is like that. It is sort of also dense but a little bit more fluffy, because now for the blending it's less about packing on more product, it is more about the blending, right? So I think what I'm going to do now is hitting my microphone, I'm going to go back into the shade Hussein, picking that up, but be careful not too much, because it's better to just go back in and apply more than having like a big stain of product in one place. And now I'm going to sweep that over the edge of the darkest blue towards that medium blue that I have on my brush. And I'm just going to, in small circular motions, put that or reapply that above that edge. Okay, so I think that the blend is now okay, though I see, for example, here that there is still an unblended line between the very dark blue and the medium blue. And now I'm just going to use that same brush that I just used to fluff out the area between the two, the dark blue and the medium blue. And I'm just going to use that and dip it into the darkest blue, and then just dab it on here, because this is where it was lacking. And I'm not using a lot of product because, again, you have to be careful to not create a big splotch of color right there. I'm just going to do the same thing here, even though here it was not as bad. Just dabbing it on, and then I'm going to brush off whatever is left on my brush. And then I'm just going to drag from the outside towards my crease. I'm going to drag the eyeshadow a little bit like this, like very fluffy strokes. That will then blend the rest. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with the blend. Again, here I have, of course, my my scar that I have, and never ever anything blends really, really well there. So that's what it is. It's not a stain or something. It is just a scar that I have right there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut the crease, and for that I'm going to take a concealer. Oh, very smart. Okay, so I'm taking the Camouflage Matte Concealer from Essence, and I'm going to use that concealer because it is very affordable and I don't want to waste a very expensive concealer on cutting my crease, because this is actually just what I'm using to carve it out, to know exactly where I'm placing my eyeshadows, or where I'm removing my eyeshadows, let's put it that way. It's not what I'm using as the base for my actual cut crease. So I'm just placing a little bit of that concealer on the back of my hand, and then I'm using a small concealer brush like this. Autofocus, are we in focus? Hard to say. It is a small concealer brush, just you have to believe me if the autofocus didn't pick it up. And then I'm going to use this brush, and I'm just looking straight ahead, not in my mirror that I have right here that is very magnified, but in my normal mirror, and I'm just placing it at the top of my eyeball. So the brush is actually lying on my eyeball, and then I'm just going to follow the shape of my eyeball like this. So when you now close your eyes or look down, you see exactly where the cut crease is gonna have to be. So this is really for me just marking the area. And then I'm going to remove the eyeshadow and the base that was beneath that, and I'm going to apply a new base, a new layer of base sort of, and then of course the shadows that we have planned to do for the lid. Okay, for carving out my cut crease, I usually use Q-tips, and they are these special kinds that are super pointed. As you can see, this is a pointed one. They are also very stiff and hard. This is not like, this isn't made for makeup. These are the regular ones, if you can see the difference. Maybe I'll hold it in front of my face so you have a darker background. So this is the pointed kind, and I'm going to use the Micellar cleansing water from Garnier. And I'm just going to get it into that water. I don't know how to say that. And then I'm using this one to just carve out the area of my cut crease. So for this side right here, as you know, if you have watched previous videos of mine, I always have to fake my cut crease a little bit because my natural crease hangs a little bit lower on this side, which sounds so bad. But first of all, I'm not 16 anymore, and that's just how we are built. We are not super similar, as like always, not connected to age. Okay, so I'm just going to fake it a little bit and go a bit above my natural crease, which is something like, in my case, maybe 2 or 3 millimeters, which in makeup terms makes a big difference. Next I have to put on, of course, eyeshadow primer for my lid, and I'm going to use the MAC Paint Pot in Soft Ochre, which is also my normal eyeshadow primer for the rest of my lid space. Okay, so I'm using that same concealer brush. That is a big one, a big concealer brush that I also used to originally put on my eyeshadow primer that I did already off camera. I usually start by putting it down on the center of my lid and then slowly working my way upwards towards the crease, where I obviously have to be very careful not to ruin it. Okay, I was in the middle of something. I just had to change my battery, the camera's battery, and I totally lost my train of thought. But I think what I was thinking was that now once you have your base on your eyelid, you can, of course, because the contrast is much higher now, you can of course see now much better if you have the real placement right. But I think we did pretty well. So what I do, by the way, you can now see that my natural crease here would be right here. So it is maybe something like 3 millimeters up until the actual crease that I drew on. So what I do next is that I use the rest of the product on my brush and I just flick it a little bit here over the edge towards the dark matte, whatever color that is in your case, because that will then make the transition a little bit more smooth. And I do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now we are ready for the application of the lid shades, and I'm actually very excited to use them because they are both, as far as I can tell, they are duochromes, are they? Well, maybe this one not, but this one definitely. So this is what I'm going to put. This one is what I'm going to put at the inner corner of my lid, not as an inner corner highlight, but as the inner corner lid thing. And this is what I'm going to blend it out with till it meets this one right here. So let's just dab this on. And as you know, I'm not believing in setting my eyeshadow primer with a matte or with a powder or something. I'm just going to use it the way it is, and I think it's going to be good. This is a white shimmer with a blue shift, which is super cool. So again, of course, you have to be really careful now to not extend over that line that we put down here. So that's why I'm using a flat shader brush, which is really stiff, and it looks a little bit like a short concealer brush, but that helps me to really be precise. And I'm just pressing it on, not sweeping, but just pressing it on into place. I think this is spectacular. I really love this, and I applied that without spraying my brush even, so that is pretty good, I think. So let's just see how the other shade works. This is called Aftab. I'm again using a flat shader brush, and I'm applying that shade, which is struggling. Let's just see why. There it goes. Okay, so apparently there was just a little bit of a layer maybe on top of that shade because it had not been touched yet, but there we go. There is the pigmentation. Okay, in order to blend those two shades, I'm going to use a round shading brush like this. I really don't know if my autofocus is picking that up. I should certainly hope so. And this time I'm going to spray my brush with my setting spray and dab that into that white shade, which is called Certifeye. And then I'm going to just drag it over the line towards that light blue. You could also use your fingers, but because of that area being super small, it's gonna be like you have to have very small fingers in order to get this done without messing up that line towards the cut crease. So, but I think we're doing pretty well with a brush like this. Now to blend out this Aftab shade into that dark blue matte, I'm actually going to use my finger and apply it just like that on my finger and just dabbing it over that edge here. Like this, so it blends into the dark blue. And worst case, if you drag it too far, you can always take this very fluffy brush that we used before and just apply the dark blue again and just drag it back a little bit over the shimmer. But I think in my case, I think I'm gonna leave it the way it is and just dabbing with my finger a little bit, and I think that looks pretty good. So the next thing that you can still do if you feel like you messed up a little bit, I just can give you a little bit of advice. I'm going to use another small shader brush or a small concealer brush, and you can then go into that darkest blue shade, which in our case was Ajib, I think that's how it's pronounced, and put a little bit of product on, and then just steady your hands on your cheeks maybe, and then just go along that line and clean up that line and make that line more defined. Okay, my lovelies, this is what it's going to be for the top part of my lid, and I think it turned out really well. For now, I'm really pleased. And now I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to just apply eyeliner and apply my foundation and all of that. And I think, of course, you can do black eyeliner top and bottom, but I think I'm going to use a black gel liner for a wing, and then I'm going to, instead of a black on the bottom or a blue on the bottom or a white on the bottom, I'm going to use a green. I think this could be really cool, also in combination with what I'm wearing. So on my head. So this is from LA Girl Shockwave Neon Green eyeliner, and that's what I'm going to use, and in a second I'm going to be back and show you how it looks. Okay, my lovelies, this is the finished look. How do you like it? I actually really do like it, and let me just tell you what I did while I was off camera. Of course, I had told you that I'm going to use that neon green eyeliner in my waterline, and I sort of picked up that same shade with my Makeup Addiction Cosmetics Holy Glow, what is it? Holy Glow Fantasy highlighter palette, which looks like this, and I chose that green shade right here as my inner corner highlight, and I think that is so cool. So I did not put on lashes, I just did a gel eyeliner wing, and I used my normal mascaras that I'm always mentioning. So this is the False Lash Superstar that I'm always using when I'm not using false lashes. I just really couldn't be bothered today, and I think I still look nice without false lashes, even though I love false lashes. That's a whole topic on its own. And then for the lower lash line, the Volume Million Lashes Access from L'Oreal as well. And for my lips, I used the Essence Velvet Matte Dusty Romance, this one, because I love nude lips with colorful looks. It's just unbeatable, I think. And what else did I do? My normal contouring, all of that is normal, and then if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go into the description box. Okay, so, and this is my Juvia's Place blush palette, and I use this shade right here, Sola, which is probably my most favorite shade in that blush palette. And wait, I forgot highlighter. Okay, so let's just quickly throw on some highlighter. And when I have nothing else to put on, I just, which one do I use? This one maybe. This is the Face Studio Chrome highlighter in the shade Molten Gold from Maybelline. And let me just quickly throw that on. I don't know, these days I always forget the highlighter, the cheekbone highlight. It does not seem to be so important to me these days. Anyway, so, and that sort of completes the look. I hope that this tutorial was helpful, especially for you who asked me to do that. I certainly had fun recording this, and I'm so happy about the outcome of the look. And of course, on my lower lash line, or under my lower lash line, I blended out my eyeshadow look with this shade, which I applied with a pencil brush, and then blended it out with that very light blue. So that's it. What do I think about the palette? Well, obviously, zooming out, wait. What do I think about the palette? I'm so positive. I'm so surprised how beautiful this performed. Really, with the other palettes, especially with the Tropical Wonders palettes from Certifeye, I'm struggling a lot sometimes. You know, maybe it's also, you know, just having a bad makeup day or something. It's not always the palettes, really. But this was instantly beautiful. I think when I applied that first dark blue eyeshadow, that matte, I think you saw instantly how the color payoff was and how it all sort of immediately started to flow together, and I love that. It does not always happen like this. So I'm very, very happy about this palette. So I used this shade here, I used this shade, I used this shade, and then this shimmer and this duochrome. And I'm super, super excited that I can now officially use that palette. And I think next time, besides the greens, of course, I want to also dip into this shade, which is, I don't know if you can see that, it has a bit of a red kind of a pigment to it. It's called Farid. And it sort of leans a tiny, tiny little bit into the purple, but it is still a blue, so it is a super interesting shade. So I'm very excited, as you can tell. Yeah, and then of course I definitely want to do the greens, definitely, and then also mix them up. So I'm very, very excited about having this palette. I'm so, so glad. Thank you, Certifeye, for coming out with something so wonderful. Let's just read what's written out here on the outer packaging. It's dream without fear, love without limits. Isn't that lovely? Okay, so that's gonna be the motto of the day. And with that, I'm going to leave you, and I hope you had fun. I hope this was helpful. If you liked the video, then please give it a like. If you're new here, then please subscribe to my channel. I would really, really love that. And besides that, I'm going to see you here next time for my next video. And up until then, go ahead and sparkle. Hugs and kisses. Bye.